Hey, welcome to class. Now, I decided to get on and create a video for you today because today's session is quite complex and it has a heck of a lot of information in it, and it's super important information for you. So, today I'm going to be talking about gut health. And specifically, gut health and your brain connection is what I really want you to understand. Now, your brain alone is comprised of 70% fat. Your brain requires fat to function at all. And it requires a lot of fat to function optimally. And in fact, we see that as we age, quite often people tend to lose that fat composition in the brain. And we know that people in particular with dementia and Alzheimer's have a lack of fat in the brain, and they also have a calcified pineal gland. So the pineal gland is the part of the brain where you create human connections. So you have your connections with your loved ones. It's partly where your intuition comes from. Your intuition is also related to your gut, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Your pineal gland is where some of your creativity comes from, and it works together with other parts of your brain as your memory bank. So this is something that we really need to understand, because 1/3 of the population ends up with dementia or Alzheimer's. The other third of the population ends up with a heart disease, and the other third of the population ends up with cancer. All of these diseases are lifestyle diseases, and the amount of fat that you have in your diet, of good fat you have in your diet, directly attributes to whether or not you're going to end up with one of these diseases. So the fallacy that fat is bad for you is so wrong that it cannot be spoken enough about. And what I see in my clients is in particular people around about 40 to 65 years old, I suppose, really have been given that information for a long, long time, that fat is bad for them, and they've avoided fat for a long time. And now we're seeing a huge influx of people with cancer, Alzheimer's or dementia, and heart disease. So we have, as well as our brain being comprised of fat, we also have something called the myelin sheath. And the myelin sheath, it surrounds or protects all of our nerves. Our nerves grow out of the spinal cord, and they either feed the body, for our muscles and for all of our organs to work the way that they're designed to, or they feed the brain and send information to and from the brain. So those nerves are either going feeding information up to the brain or feeding information from the brain into the body. Either way, those nerves are protected by what's called a myelin sheath. And if you think of, say, like a cord, right? So this is like a power cord. If you think of that, underneath that cover is actually the wires that make that power cord work. It's the same with your nerves. So your nerves actually have a protective covering called the myelin sheath. And if the myelin sheath is damaged, then the nerves don't work properly. Just like if that cord went into a lamp or something and that cord is damaged, then chances are the lamp is no longer going to work either. So your myelin sheath is very important. It's made up of protein and fat. So your consumption of protein and fat literally is what is the building blocks of your entire body. So we know that dementia and Alzheimer's are affected specifically by a high carbohydrate diet, which just seems ridiculous to me that if you think about it, if you put somebody into a care facility, you know what their diet is? It's a high carbohydrate diet, low fat, high carbs. That's what they live on: potato, rice, bread, pasta. They're filling types of food, and very cheap as well. So it's financially viable for these places to feed those people with dementia a higher carbohydrate diet. And that's partly why we see, if you go into a home, then your dementia rapidly increases. Now, we also know, as far as gut health, that antibiotics really affect the gut. So antibiotics in particular, one prescription of antibiotics can damage the gut for up to 2 years. And that's unless you heal your gut from that one course of antibiotics. So if we think about it, as far as children are concerned, a lot of children are fed antibiotics when they're young, yet our gut biome, or our gut microbiome, does not fully develop until we go through puberty. So around about we're 12, 13 years old, that's when our gut biome fully develops, and in fact it changes while we're young until it's fully developed. Our gut microbiome starts development pretty much when you're born. So when you come out through your mother's birth canal, then you should receive some good probiotics, and that's the development of your gut microbiome. So if you've had a Caesar, then that doesn't happen to you, and you want to build that microbiome. And or if you're not breastfed, then that doesn't happen to you either. Also, if your mother was exposed to antibiotics when you were in vitro, when you were in her tummy, or if your child was in your tummy and you were exposed to antibiotics, then it stopped their birthing microbiome from developing properly. And then, taking into consideration, if you have another course of antibiotics anywhere along the line, then you're looking at 2 years for your gut to heal. So every time you have antibiotics, and antibiotics are given out like anything else, prolifically through the Western medical system, then you're going to have a damaged gut. It's as simple as that. There are things that we can do to heal the gut, but on the whole, people don't do that. And that's another reason why we're seeing a lot of leaky gut in the world. Leaky gut also is, if I think of my entire gut system as a tube. So I eat food, it goes down through my mouth, down my esophagus, all the way down through my digestive system, and then out the other end, and I get rid of anything that I don't need. Over years, if I keep eating things that are not ideal for me, or that I'm susceptible to, then eventually, so that starts to tear little holes in that tube. So it's somewhere between my esophagus and my anus, it starts to tear little holes in that tube. And at first, my body can heal that quite well, because my mitochondria, which is pretty much all of the cells in my body, my mitochondria are working optimally when I'm young, and I'm able to just keep healing, keep producing new cells quite prolifically. So even though I might be eating things that are bothering me, I may not be recognizing it while I'm young. By the time I get to around about 40, that process starts to slow down. By the time I'm in menopause, that process is very, very slow, and we stop healing so quickly, which is why we see a lot of women from about 40 plus end up with leaky gut, autoimmune, and all sorts of digestive issues. It's simply because the body is not healing as quickly anymore, and those little tears that are happening in the digestive system is now releasing an undigested piece of food into the bloodstream, and the body fights against that because it isn't meant to have undigested food in the bloodstream. It's meant to be completely digested and then almost soak that in like a sponge. It simply cannot handle, say, a piece of corn And that's why then, we become sensitive to corn products, for example. So healing the gut is absolutely step one as far as healing the body from inflammation. If you want to lose weight, if you want to help with autoimmune, if you want to help with any type of pain, and if you want to help with stress and anxiety, because some of those hormones also that we produce, as far as your stress hormones, they are produced in the adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands are very much related to the liver. So the liver needs to be clean to be able to clean all of our hormones out. And if we're not cleaning, if our gut isn't working optimally, then we end up overloaded with too many hormones. For most women, it becomes that we're overloaded with excess estrogen. Excess estrogen leads to tiredness, overweight, if you've still got your periods, heavy periods, endometriosis, fibroids, lack of sex drive, stress, all of those things that a lot of women start to feel where they're going through perimenopause and menopause. So this is how important it is to heal your gut before you step onto the next journey, which will be longer intermittent fasting. Now, I am definitely going to talk about short intermittent fasting now, and something that I would like you to take away is just checking in on your eating windows. So it takes your body 6 hours to digest food, and your body needs a break from food. So one thing that you could start practicing is to simply give yourself the 6 hours between meals, at least 4 to 6 hours between meals, and practice elongating that time frame between dinner and breakfast. So say if at the moment you're eating at 7 o'clock and then you're having another snack at 8 or 9 o'clock, even if it's just a little piece of chocolate or a little snack before you go to bed, and then you get up at 7, then that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's only 10 hours between food. A lot of people only have anywhere between 7 and 10 hours between food. If it takes your body 6 hours just to digest, then, and only then, is your body then getting rid of excess hormones, excess inflammation, excess stress. So your ideal is that you're pushing out your eating window somewhere between 12 and 15 hours between your very last thing that you put in your mouth in the evening to the very first thing you put in your mouth in the morning. Now, I know that if your body's not used to that, that can be a very long time, and the whole point of our journey together is that this is a sustainable journey. So what I encourage you to do to start with, regardless of where you're at as far as fasting is concerned, is just play around with adding on 15 minutes every week. So push out your eating window between dinner and breakfast by 15 minutes. Now, I'm going to make another video specifically about fasting, but I really wanted to touch on gut health and the brain connection. And one more thing, we also know now that people with depression, ADHD, autism, learning difficulties, as well as dementia and Alzheimer's, they all have gut issues as well. So we know from working with people and from peer-reviewed studies that people with those types of issues, which ultimately are neurological issues, it used to be thought that if you had depression, then it was a chemical imbalance in the brain. That's no longer the case. Only if you're a psychopath is a chemical imbalance. If it's depression or anxiety, PTSD, a lot of that comes down to A, traumatic experiences, but B, traumatic experiences and what it's done to your gut. So healing the gut can help all of that as well. So you want to heal the gut if you've got any type of trauma, inflammation, or stress response in the body. Absolutely number one. I'm going to speak to you soon. We're going to elaborate on that. I just wanted to come to you in this video because I know that this is going to be a deep dive and a big leap for some of you. So I want to let you know that I'm here for you all the time. So either jump on our chat together or jump into the virtual classroom and continue asking questions, because I can guarantee that the questions you have are similar to the questions that other people have, and it takes asking them to get the answers. I will see you soon.